Imagine stepping off a crowded train, the city humming softly around you, only to reach for your pocket and feel nothing but air. Your wallet is gone. Inside it, several days' worth of cash, bank cards, small notes folded carefully, and perhaps no identification at all. No phone number, no address, just money and the quiet panic rising in your chest. For a moment, your thoughts race toward the worst conclusions. It's over. Someone has it. It will never return. Yet in this story, something unexpected happens. Hours later, maybe even the next day, that same wallet waits patiently at a nearby police box, every bill untouched, every card exactly where it was placed. No drama, no bargaining, no public praise, just a quiet system working beneath the surface of society. A place where losing something valuable does not automatically mean losing faith. How does a nation reach that level of trust? Is it pure honesty, strict law, silent social pressure, or something far more deliberate woven into everyday life? We step into that mystery not as tourists searching for a miracle, but as observers examining structure. Because somewhere between human nature and social design lies an answer. And perhaps, hidden inside a lost wallet, is a blueprint for something much bigger than money, revealing how trust itself is carefully engineered and sustained. Data often tells a story that emotions alone cannot explain. Each year, hundreds of thousands of lost items are handed over to authorities, and a remarkable percentage of wallets containing cash are eventually returned to their owners. In major metropolitan areas, reports have shown that a significant portion of lost money is recovered, sometimes reaching levels that astonish international observers. Foreign residents frequently share disbelief when they first encounter these figures. The idea that a wallet filled with bills could reappear intact feels almost improbable to many who come from lower trust environments. For some visitors, the numbers seem exaggerated, almost myth-like, until they experience it personally. The reaction is rarely neutral. It is usually shock, followed by curiosity. Behind those statistics are documented procedures and public records that quietly reinforce credibility. Police reports outline the volume of items processed annually, from umbrellas and mobile phones to envelopes thick with cash. The recovery rates are not framed as miracles, but as administrative outcomes. Travelers who misplace their belongings often recount the same sequence of events: anxiety, report filing, then an unexpected phone call confirming recovery. Embassies and relocation forums are filled with similar accounts, creating a pattern too consistent to dismiss as coincidence. When repeated across thousands of cases, coincidence transforms into culture. The numbers begin to point towards something structural rather than accidental. Yet statistics alone do not solve the mystery, they deepen it. High return rates raise an even more compelling question: what invisible forces are shaping behavior at scale? Visitors compare these outcomes with experiences back home and sense a clear divergence in social expectations. In many societies, losing a wallet means preparing for financial damage control. Here, it often means waiting for procedure to unfold. That predictable outcome unsettles assumptions about human nature. Are people simply more honest, or is honesty being reinforced by something more deliberate? The figures invite admiration, but they also demand investigation, drawing us further into the architecture of trust. Beyond the impressive statistics lies a carefully organized process that begins the very moment a stranger notices a wallet on the ground. The finder does not usually hesitate or look around nervously. Instead, there is a clear social expectation about the next step. The item is taken to the nearest police box, commonly known as a Koban, small neighborhood stations positioned within walking distance across cities and towns. Inside, officers receive the item formally, documenting the time, location, and condition in precise detail. Cash is counted carefully in front of the person who found it, ensuring transparency from the start. Nothing about the exchange is dramatic. It is procedural, calm, and methodical. Paperwork follows with quiet efficiency. Officers record identifying features, brand names, card issuers, and any clues that could help locate the owner. If identification is inside, contact begins quickly through phone calls or official notices. If there is no identification, the wallet is cataloged and stored securely, waiting for a claim. The finder is asked whether they wish to claim a legal reward percentage or waive it entirely. Many choose to decline, reinforcing social expectations without public recognition. The process is neither rushed nor casual. It is designed to create a chain of accountability from discovery to recovery. This step-by-step structure removes uncertainty and replaces it with predictability. Storage facilities connected to local stations hold thousands of items, each labeled and tracked with disciplined organization. Owners who report losses provide descriptions, verify contents, and sign official forms before items are returned. Every detail is checked to prevent false claims. What appears from the outside as extraordinary honesty is supported internally by administrative clarity. There is no reliance on luck or goodwill alone. A system absorbs human impulses and guides them toward order. By removing fantasy and exposing structure, the mystery shifts. The question is no longer whether people are honest by chance, but how procedure steadily shapes honest outcomes. For many visitors, the expectation of loss is almost automatic. In cities shaped by low-trust environments, a missing wallet signals the beginning of cancellation calls, frozen bank cards, and resigned acceptance. Cultural conditioning teaches caution first, optimism later. When individuals grow up hearing stories of theft more often than stories of return, they internalize a defensive mindset. It is not necessarily a belief that people are evil, but a belief that opportunity often overrides morality. So when travelers hear that wallets regularly find their way back untouched, their first reaction is doubt. The numbers feel disconnected from lived experience. Skepticism becomes a shield against disappointment, and hope feels naive. High-trust and low-trust societies operate on different emotional baselines. In a high-trust setting, strangers are not automatically viewed as threats. They are participants in a shared social contract. In lower-trust cultures, personal responsibility often replaces communal assurance. People protect themselves because they assume others may not. This divergence shapes everyday behavior, from how tightly one holds a bag to how quickly one reports a loss. Visitors carry their home expectations with them. So when reality contradicts those expectations, surprise turns into fascination. The return of a wallet becomes more than a recovered object. It becomes a challenge to long-held assumptions about human behavior. That disbelief quietly builds tension. If honesty alone cannot explain such consistency, then something deeper must be influencing conduct. Foreign observers begin comparing mental frameworks, asking whether law, education, or social design plays a stronger role. The difference is not simply about morality. It is about the architecture that supports it. One environment prepares citizens for loss, while another prepares them for accountability. This widening gap in expectations sets the stage for a broader examination. To understand why the outcome differs, we must look beyond individual character and examine how entire systems shape collective behavior. But honesty alone doesn't explain this. If integrity were the only factor, similar outcomes would appear consistently across other developed nations with strong moral traditions. Yet when examining the United States or the United Kingdom, recovery rates for lost wallets vary widely depending on the city, neighborhood, and circumstance. Urban density plays a significant role. Large metropolitan areas with high population turnover often produce weaker social familiarity among strangers. Anonymity increases, and with anonymity comes reduced social accountability. Surveys conducted in Western cities have shown that while many people intend to return lost property, actual follow-through depends heavily on convenience and perceived risk. The expectation of return exists, but it is not structurally reinforced at every level. In cities like London or New York, a lost wallet may pass through multiple hands before reaching authority, if it reaches authority at all. Police stations are not always within short walking distance, and informal handling sometimes replaces formal procedure. Trust levels fluctuate according to socioeconomic divides, and public confidence in recovery systems is uneven. People often rely on digital cancellation rather than retrieval, assuming financial damage control is faster than hope. The difference is subtle but powerful. One environment prepares citizens to mitigate loss, while another prepares them to recover it. That psychological preparation shapes behavior long before a wallet ever touches the pavement. What distinguishes the Japanese model is not moral superiority, but structural consistency. Dense cities are supported by highly visible neighborhood police boxes, creating immediate channels for action. Clear legal guidelines, documented incentives, and predictable procedures remove hesitation from the finder's decision. Social expectation aligns with administrative design, forming a closed loop of accountability. The result is not accidental virtue, but engineered reliability. When comparison sharpens the view, the pattern becomes clearer. Trust is not left to chance. It is reinforced through accessibility, clarity, and repetition. And that realization pulls us deeper into the system that sustains it. Long before adulthood introduces legal consequences or financial responsibility, moral awareness is quietly cultivated through daily structure and shared expectations. Children are taught that their actions ripple outward, affecting classmates, neighbors, and even strangers they may never meet. Responsibility is not presented as a heroic act, but as a normal extension of belonging. When a child finds something that does not belong to them, the expected response is immediate reporting, not hesitation or private negotiation. Teachers, guardians, and community figures reinforce this behavior consistently, creating repetition strong enough to become instinct. Over time, integrity stops feeling like a choice and begins to feel like identity. Schools emphasize group harmony, shared accountability, and respect for collective spaces, embedding social awareness into routine rather than dramatic lectures about morality. A classroom becomes a miniature society where small duties carry visible consequences for everyone involved. When students forget items, they are often returned through clear channels, reinforcing predictable outcomes early in life. This repetition constructs internal regulation, where behavior aligns with expectation even without supervision. Moral conditioning does not rely on fear alone. It depends on normalization through daily reinforcement. A lost wallet, therefore, is not merely found by an adult citizen, but by someone shaped through years of structured social rhythm. Character is built quietly through repetition, expectation, correction, and belonging, until honesty becomes less about personal virtue and more about protecting shared stability. Community identity strengthens this process further, as individuals grow up understanding that reputation extends beyond personal image to family and neighborhood perception. Actions reflect on more than the self, creating subtle yet powerful accountability. Internal regulation becomes stronger than external enforcement because the social contract feels personal. By the time adulthood arrives, returning lost property no longer feels exceptional or praiseworthy. It feels normal, almost automatic. And that quiet normality explains more than grand speeches about morality ever could. Scattered across busy intersections and quiet residential streets stand small police boxes that operate as constant, approachable guardians within everyday life. These neighborhood stations are not distant headquarters hidden behind intimidating gates, but visible structures integrated naturally into the rhythm of the community. Their accessibility changes behavior before incidents even occur, because help never feels far away. When someone discovers a lost wallet, uncertainty is brief. The nearest station is often only minutes away on foot. That physical closeness removes excuses and shortens hesitation. The act of returning property becomes convenient rather than burdensome. Structure quietly replaces doubt. Officers stationed inside these posts are trained to engage residents with familiarity, building trust through repeated daily interaction rather than rare emergency response. People ask for directions, report minor concerns, and seek assistance without fear of bureaucracy. This steady presence shapes psychology in subtle ways. Visibility alone influences decision-making, reinforcing awareness that accountability is always nearby without feeling oppressive. A finder holding a lost wallet does not face a complicated process. The system is clear, accessible, and immediate. Procedure begins quickly, documentation follows carefully, and storage is secured systematically. Reliability grows from repetition, and repetition grows from presence. A small police box on a street corner can quietly transform uncertainty into order, turning individual choices into predictable outcomes sustained by accessibility and consistent community interaction. The strength of this design lies not in intimidation, but in integration. Neighborhood policing becomes part of daily scenery, blending authority with approachability. That fusion encourages cooperation rather than resistance. When accessibility meets social expectation, behavior aligns naturally with institutional design. The result is a framework where honesty is supported by infrastructure, and infrastructure is reinforced by trust. Beneath the culture of return lies a clear legal framework that defines ownership, responsibility, and consequence with precision. When someone finds lost property, the law requires it to be reported to authorities within a specific time frame. Failure to do so can classify the act as misappropriation rather than accidental possession. This clarity removes moral ambiguity and replaces it with defined obligation. The finder is also legally entitled to claim a reward percentage from the recovered cash if the owner is identified. That incentive formalizes gratitude without turning honesty into negotiation. The system acknowledges integrity while ensuring transparency through documentation and verification. Legal structure transforms moral choice into civic duty, reducing hesitation by providing predictable procedures, defined timelines, and measurable consequences for withholding property. If a finder decides to keep the wallet and is later identified, consequences can include fines or criminal charges depending on circumstances. Surveillance systems, transaction tracking, and reporting channels increase the likelihood of accountability. The risk of exposure outweighs short-term gain, especially within a society that values reputation stability. At the same time, if an item remains unclaimed after a designated storage period, ownership may legally transfer to the finder. This balanced approach blends responsibility, incentive, and consequence into one coherent design. Law does not replace morality, it reinforces it. By aligning ethical behavior with legal clarity, the framework strengthens predictable outcomes and sustains public trust through structured accountability. Beyond law and procedure lies a quieter force that shapes behavior long before authority becomes involved: social reputation. In tightly interconnected communities, personal actions rarely remain isolated from collective perception. The idea of bringing embarrassment to family, workplace, or neighborhood carries emotional weight far greater than short-term financial gain. Reputation functions as invisible currency, accumulated slowly and protected carefully. Losing it can mean social distance, diminished trust, and subtle exclusion from group harmony. Because belonging is deeply valued, behavior naturally adjusts to preserve dignity. Returning a lost wallet therefore protects more than the owner's property. It protects the finder's standing within an interdependent social web. Silent social pressure operates continuously, shaping decisions even when no one appears to be watching or recording behavior in public or private spaces. This pressure is not loud or confrontational. It works through expectation rather than accusation. People internalize awareness that dishonorable actions ripple outward, affecting relationships and long-term stability. Fear of legal punishment may deter misconduct, but fear of dishonor carries deeper psychological consequence. Harmony within the group is prioritized over individual impulse, and that priority guides everyday choices. When someone encounters lost property, the calculation extends beyond money. It includes identity, perception, and future interaction. The protection of collective balance becomes instinctive. Through this silent framework, society sustains order not through constant enforcement, but through shared commitment to mutual respect and preserved honor. Trust here is not sentimental optimism. It is engineered through repetition, predictability, and consistent social feedback over generations of shared civic participation. When systems respond reliably, people adjust their expectations upward. A lost wallet is returned. A train arrives on schedule. A complaint receives measured attention. Over time, these repeated confirmations construct what can only be described as social architecture. It is invisible yet load-bearing, supporting daily life the way steel beams support a skyline. Individuals move through public space assuming cooperation rather than conflict. That assumption reduces friction, lowers anxiety, and increases efficiency across millions of interactions each day. High trust is not accidental. It is accumulated proof. Predictability becomes the foundation upon which strangers cooperate without hesitation, forming invisible agreements that guide behavior even when no words are exchanged between them. These invisible agreements operate quietly but powerfully. Citizens expect others to follow procedures, and because that expectation is widely shared, most people comply. The result is a reinforcing loop. Order encourages trust, and trust encourages order. When someone hands a wallet to a police box, they are not performing heroism. They are participating in a predictable pattern. When authorities safeguard and return it carefully, they reinforce that pattern. Each completed cycle strengthens the structure. Foreign observers may focus on morality alone, yet the deeper mechanism is reliability sustained over time. Systems function, communities observe, and belief solidifies. Within such an environment, ethical action feels normal rather than exceptional. People are not constantly calculating risk because the social climate discourages betrayal before it begins. Trust becomes practical infrastructure, reducing the need for heavy surveillance or aggressive enforcement. It allows dense cities to operate smoothly, businesses to transact confidently, and strangers to coexist with minimal suspicion. The architecture of trust does not eliminate human imperfection, yet it narrows the space in which dishonesty thrives. What appears extraordinary from the outside is simply the visible outcome of countless invisible agreements honored daily without applause. At the beginning, we imagined a missing wallet and the quiet panic that follows sudden loss without warning or reassurance. We felt the uncertainty, the silent calculations, the assumption that what is gone may never return again. Yet, through this journey, that simple object revealed something far larger than misplaced currency. It exposed structure, expectation, repetition, and the invisible agreements that quietly hold society together. A wallet returned untouched is not luck, it is architecture in motion. It is proof that systems, culture, and accountability can align consistently over time. Trust does not rise from speeches or slogans. It grows from daily predictability reinforced through law, community expectation, accessible policing, and moral conditioning. So now the question turns gently toward us. What kind of society do we want to live in, and what kind are we quietly building? Do we prepare ourselves only to recover from loss, or do we design environments where loss becomes temporary rather than permanent? Every nation carries its own history, its own pressures, its own complexities. But the principle remains universal. Trust can be weakened by neglect or strengthened by deliberate design. The choice is collective. The responsibility is shared. If this story challenged your assumptions or expanded your perspective, share your thoughts below and join the conversation thoughtfully. This is Asia Within, where we look beyond headlines and explore the deeper structures shaping modern societies across the continent and beyond. If you value calm analysis, layered storytelling, and meaningful insight, support the channel by liking, subscribing, and sharing with someone who appreciates thoughtful discussion. Let us continue asking better questions, observing carefully, and imagining systems that elevate collective trust for future generations.